Good afternoon. This is Pastor Rubin H. Benjamin of Beulah First Missionary Baptist Church. I pray that you are doing well on this day. It's a rainy day in Michigan, but God is still good. I pray that all is going well with you and your families. Hey, I just want to come on here real quick and do a pop-up of encouragement. Often when we're going through crisis like we're going through today, we look to Scripture for our answers. And that's a perfect place to go, is to go to God in Scripture as well as in prayer. And so today I want to look at a Scripture that we often go to, but what I want to make sure is that we look at the Scripture correctly, or we apply it correctly. The Scripture is Romans 8:28, and I'll read it to you from the King James Version. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. What a great scripture to lean and depend on, knowing that all things, no matter if it's good or bad, God is like a chemist. He mixes them all together for they will work to our good. But I want to look at this scripture a little deeper just to make sure that you and I are applying it correctly. For three things that you can take out of this first verse: the promise that God has given us, the condition of the promise, and how he's going to carry out the promise, or why he carries out the promise. The promise is all things will work together. All things will work together for good to them who love God. That's the condition. We've got a promise and we've got a condition. That condition is who loves God. Now, that's more than just an acknowledgement of God. That's a commitment to God. Have you been living and walking with God? That's what will get you, again, the promise. And then why he wants to carry it out, or how is he going to carry it out? For his purpose. Not our purpose, but his purpose. But often when I'm teaching at Beulah First, I tell my membership to look at a scripture, what was written before it and what was written after it. And so I want to go to verse 29 because most of the time we stop right there. Let's take a look at verse 29 and I'll read it for you. For whom he did foreknown, he also did predestine to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. What a great second verse. Why is God doing all these things will work together for our good, for those who love him according to his purpose? What is he trying to create? It's this phrase right here: conform to the image of his Son. Everything that happens in our lives and everything that God directs in our lives, he is trying to get us to conform to his Son. For when he looks at us, he wants to see Jesus embedded in us. Also, what I want you to understand in this scripture as well, two things in this last verse. God is doing two things. One, he's trying to create a relationship, and he's trying to deepen a relationship. I'm glad to know that I am a believer. I'm walking with Christ. And so while I'm going through this crisis, I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to deepen my relationship with him. But for those who are unbelievers, this promise you can't act on. So he's trying to create a relationship with you. So if I were you today, and if you don't know Christ, I would really ask him to come into my life so that you could get to know him. And when you get to know who he is, or you receive his salvation, you can then expect the promise. All things work together for good to them who love God and who are called according to his purpose. You be blessed. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you on Resurrection Sunday. Take care.